Okay, President Biden is once again pushing back against criticism of the government's response to Hurricane Helene. Biden is calling it misinformation. Biden's also ripping President Trump.
It's almost his sole focus. It's bizarre. Meanwhile, Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas insists FEMA will need more money after Hurricane Milton.
Mark Meredith is live at the White House. Mark, so what are they upset about at the White House right now, Mark?
Lauren, Steve, Ainsley, and Brian, good morning, friends. What they're upset about is what they claim has been a spinning of the truth about the disaster recovery effort that's been underway ever since Hurricane Helene hit 6 states just a few weeks ago. Today, we are going to get another update from President Biden on the government's disaster recovery, as we've talked about these two major storms which have caused widespread destruction across the South. We know that the government is in the process of opening more FEMA disaster recovery centers, which will help communities most impacted by Hurricane Milton. The president says survivors of Helene, which tore through those 6 states, are also getting the help they need. Former President Trump has repeatedly accused Biden and Vice President Harris of poor disaster recovery management. And on Thursday, Biden fired back, claiming Trump is spinning the truth.
Are you kidding me? Mr. President Trump, former President Trump, get a life, man. Help these people.
We don't know when President Biden may have traveled to Florida to meet with first responders. We are hearing from the Homeland Security Secretary, who says right now the government has the money it needs to provide immediate assistance.
We have the resources to respond to the immediate needs of individuals impacted by Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton and the associated. That being said, we will need additional funds, and we implore Congress, when it returns, to in fact fund FEMA as is needed.
The money issue keeps coming up. Here's a look at what FEMA has been spending your tax dollars on, with $31 billion appropriated for the fiscal year, $344 million so far going to Hurricane Helene. That number expected to rise. You see the money that was spent on the pandemic and also money that was spent on addressing the U.S. southern border crisis. The White House says more money is urgently needed for the SBA. That's the Small Business Administration. They also provide disaster recovery loans. But as of right now, guys, there's no indication that Congress plans to return to Washington before the November election. Steve, Ainsley, Brian, and Lawrence, back to you.
Mark, I just don't understand. The fiscal year is 8 days old. They're already out of money? Didn't they plan literally for a rainy day?
Yeah, the government's saying now that they're not out of money, because this has been a mixed messaging, right, Brian, that's come up all week, because we originally heard back when Helene was happening that they didn't think they'd even have enough money to survive the next hurricane. Now, obviously, that we've had Milton come through, the government changing its story just a little bit, saying we've got money for right now. And the president was asked about this just yesterday, saying, well, wait, what's happening? Are we out of money, or are we okay with money? And the indication was he was talking about the SBA, not necessarily FEMA.
Which is out of money.
Well, it's a little confusing. In the meantime, they're talking a lot about disinformation. I know Peter Doocy asked a fair question the other day, and he was branded as being, the question was disinformation.
How can a question be disinformation?
Well, right, the way he said it. Mark, what is it in particular that people are saying that is so angry in the White House? Because the New York Times has got something up right now about all these wild theories about the hurricanes. The storms were engineered to clear the way for lithium mining. They were sent to help Democrats in next month's election. They were formed by weather-controlling lasers. Any of that part of it?
I would imagine that is part of the discussion. Obviously, social media is a whole new element when it comes to the disasters that we as Americans experience today. You're right, whether or not it's rumors that pop up on X or on Reddit or anything else, and then they kind of take off from there. The former president was asked about this. I think it was in Laura Ingram's town hall back in Butler the other day, and he made it very clear. He just feels like the government's not doing enough to help the people that are going through so much right now. And there's always been politics when it comes to disaster recovery. Remember what happened with Sandy? I mean, you guys were probably all on that couch dealing with the disaster response from Hurricane Sandy back in 2012.
Absolutely.
Yep. We all remember what happened after
Brian's
Katrina
house
in
was
2005.
destroyed.
Yeah, so you would imagine that there's always been a politics element of disaster recovery, but because this is playing out so close to the election, it's getting more attention.
All right, Mark, thanks so much. I'd say this. I think a lot of it is they want to show that Donald Trump's irresponsible as a leader and throws out misinformation. You don't want that guy as president because he throws out things that aren't true. That's why they're double and triple down on it. That's why they had their performative conference call where everyone talked about how great the other person was handling this catastrophe, in my view. And they all had the windbreakers on and complimented each other. And misinformation, as long as there's social media, which is for the rest of our lives, there's always going to be things out there that make no sense. And what Ron DeSantis said it. You just listen to us. Don't worry about the other stuff.
But Brian, they are following the bouncing ball as they always do. Sure, there is some misinformation about, what's happening on the ground. But what's not misinformation is the way that they handled the storm. The fact that the truth didn't get there in time enough. The fact that there's still dead bodies there that they haven't been able to recover. The fact that they didn't plan efficiently there on the ground. The residents are upset about this. I find this much like in the community in Ohio. Everybody started talking about the cats and dogs story, but they failed to realize the real issue in the community, which is the schools were overrun. Services were taken from the community.
I agree with you, Lawrence, because you can't, the pictures don't lie.
They don't.
The sound bites don't lie. We saw Donald Trump with Franklin Graham and Samaritan's Purse in Georgia right after it happened. We saw him in North Carolina. We saw that they were sending troops in North Carolina. Blame it on the governor. Blame it on FEMA, whatever you want. We know that the troops were not called in for a week after all of that happened in North Carolina. We had reporters there on the ground. They were interviewing residents, and they were all saying the same thing. Where is the help? We need help. If it weren't for our community and volunteers, we would be underwater. Many of our neighbors have died. We need help. And then you see Mayorkas on TV saying, I don't know. I think we're out of money. I think FEMA has enough money for one more hurricane. Well, then you hear misinformation. And Peter Doocy asked an excellent question. Why do we have to why is Kamala giving so much money to Lebanon or supporting Lebanon, and we're all giving millions of dollars to Lebanon, yet we have to ask Congress to come back to get FEMA money? That was his question.
That it was just a bad look. Of course, the money to Lebanon was appropriated by Congress. Now Congress has got to come back. It's all a mess. I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.